Hey everyone, this is Stove here and welcome back to another video. This time we are going over a preview of week 15 of the NFL, and for this coming Thursday we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously Bijan Robinson had gotten over 200 carries and over 1,000 rushing yards with 5 rushing touchdowns, and then you also have like some other players on that Falcons team that have been able to reach some milestones. Obviously, haven't been too good pretty much all year, have had some issues. Their defense has gotten to like a certain point where they aren't like the best, but they also aren't that bad either. Same with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Their offensive their offense was very good, very high up here, and then just kind of trickled down lower and lower, and they've gotten to a certain point where it's like they're not bad, but they aren't the same Tampa Bay Buccaneers that started this season. Whether that has to do with the amount of injuries that we have seen from them defensively and offensively, mostly their offensive line and their receiving core, or the fact that Baker Mayfield, even when he's had healthy guys, he has also not been able to still get the least amount of pressure that he needs to be able to throw solid passes, or unfortunately has faced defenses that have read him and the receivers that he's throwing to very well. So anyway, that being said, Falcons haven't really done a good job. I mean, they're 4-9, they've won games, but they've also had games where they haven't really looked too good. And last week, I believe that was the same thing, if I am correct on that. But anyway, neither was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay Buccaneers lost against New Orleans Saints, and granted, this is another just divisional rivalry that has gone on for a good while. And I think with the Falcons not even making it to the playoffs, it's really just a show of strength of, can they take out one of the biggest teams in their division, especially with Tampa Bay being the home team this time, because in the first week of this season it was Tampa Bay at Atlanta Falcons Stadium. I think that even with the struggles that Tampa Bay had, I do see that Tampa Bay Buccaneers players that have been injured off and on, or have just been injured for like several weeks, have and possibly will be coming back for either this week or next week. So with that being said, you get those key players back, whether it's offensive line or it's the receiving core with Mike Evans, Josh Godwin Jr., and there's also another 4th or 5th receiver guy that's kind of right behind in that receiving core. And then at the same time, you have some defensive players that may be able to come back this week, next week, maybe even the week after. So with that being said, Saints have come up with a good strategy, being able to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think the Atlanta Falcons can do pretty much the same thing if they wanted to, and it will still show some struggle with Baker Mayfield getting pressured, the running scheme for their offense not really working too much in their favor either. even when you had Bucky Irving and Reggie both at the same, I'm pretty sure his name's Reggie, but you have both your running backs in that backfield, and still not being able to get open gaps here, not being able to just get 5-6 solid yards, whether it's passing or rushing. But yeah, I'm gonna have to say it'll end up being a very close one if Tampa Bay continues to show up the way that they are. If we see something different, then I could definitely see Tampa Bay winning by more than 2 possessions. But Tampa Bay will win by a field goal and a half or 2 field goals. And I would definitely have to say Tampa Bay is going to win this Thursday night game here. Obviously, me prolonging that introduction really probably lost a couple of you guys. But still, it's just a interesting game ever since we've seen Tampa Bay pretty much choke against their other division rivals in the New Orleans Saints. Now, speaking of divisional rivals, we have Baltimore Ravens versus Cincinnati Bengals again, this time in Cincinnati. Now, we did a pretty darn bang-up job against Baltimore in Baltimore, and with it being even more colder than it was just 2 weeks ago, I will have to say still, Cincinnati will come out on top, beating the Baltimore Ravens and probably even just taking the Baltimore Ravens out of the playoffs entirely with this loss here. Because after Baltimore Ravens, if they do take this loss, then they also still have to face the Steelers at the end of the year, and then at the same time, they got to deal with a couple other teams that aren't really... Well, I think it's either the Steelers or the Ravens that have to face the Lions in like 2 or 3 weeks. So, yeah. Anyway, I think the Bengals, simply put, are going to not do the exact same thing, but definitely put enough pressure on the Baltimore Ravens to give us a lot more hope. And with the offensive line seeming to be a lot more egregious and being able to have all that momentum, even with a loss coming out of losing at home against Buffalo Bills, who are a playoff contender easily. We give up a couple of turnovers, it ends up turning into a shit show for us. We don't get those we don't throw those turnovers. It could end up being a 5-8 team facing the Baltimore Ravens this coming Sunday. So, with that being said, even when the Baltimore Ravens are still favorited 2.5 points ahead of us, I still go with my Cincinnati Bengals. Chicago Bears versus Browns, obviously with Shedeur Sanders playing exactly how a lot of fantasy teams or fantasy players wanted him to play. He played pretty good, I would say. The stats was great, but they still came up with a loss, unfortunately. But they kept on digging their heels and really trying to get that win back. And unfortunately, they just couldn't finish it the way that they wanted it to. With them facing Chicago, who just I would say either 8 to 10 years ago, both these two teams were pretty crappy teams. And obviously 8 to 10 years ago in NFL and NBA wise, there was a lot of different changes that happened over that time period. And I agree, but the only team that actually has been getting better really is Chicago Bears. You can argue about that to me however you want. That's just how I feel, besides like 2 years that Cleveland had a solid quarterback in Baker Mayfield. But yeah, Chicago, they are 4-1 at home. I believe majority of their games are going to be at home for the rest of the season. So this is pretty much where the Chicago Bears continue their wins, and as long as they get these wins at home, they get these wins at home and be able to stake claim, probably, I would say 3 out of the 4 games. So, and I don't think that this is going to be the one game that they lose, but Chicago will end up winning this game. Now, with the Cleveland Browns defense, it may turn out to possibly be a different game, and with Shador and Quentin Judkins being these superstars and possibly even X-Factor playmakers on the Cleveland Browns offense to make this a more interesting game than we understand it can be, then that's exactly what we may just see. But I think even with the Chicago Bears having a solid back and forth game against the Green Bay Packers, now obviously they lost that game, but really it could have happened either way. It's just, it ended up happening Green Bay Packers way, especially since the Green Bay Packers, I believe, was at home during that game. So Chicago, you guys have already played some solid defenses this past season already, and I don't think the Cleveland Browns are going to make it any different, though Myles Garrett may probably break the record by sacking Caleb Williams 3 or 4 times during this game, if they're not careful, of course. I don't know if they're still dealing with offensive line injury trouble right now, but that's just my thoughts. And hell, that's what a lot of people's thoughts, with the projected total points being 38.5, and I'd say it could be around there. But if the Bears are on it, or if the Browns and Bears go back and forth with their offenses as well as their defense, I think you're going to probably see over 40 points in total during this game. Yeah, pretty much a division weekend, truly a lot of division weekends between the beginning of the season and towards the end of the season. You have the Chargers versus the Chiefs. Even though the Chiefs have given up some games defensively, and even Patrick Mahomes has thrown some interceptions, though the second interception that he throws, or third interception that he throws against Houston, wasn't entirely his fault. You could probably even blame Travis Kelce, who's their leading receiver at the moment, and probably still will be by the end of the season. But realistically, you're facing one of the best turnover teams in Houston Texans, one of, if not the best defenses in the league. So, and with them already having trouble, it was just a solid game, and Houston had their number. Now the Chargers could definitely have that same grit, same mentality, because their defense had also created 5 turnovers just to help them win against the Philadelphia Eagles, who is also a pretty good powerhouse and who has also played in the Super Bowl last year. So with that being said, I think the Chargers are going to end up doing almost the same thing to the Chiefs as they did to the Philadelphia Eagles. I do think it will be less turnovers, but there will still be at least 2 turnovers against the Chiefs. And now, will there be a lot of sacks? It really just depends. I think both defensive lines didn't really, in my opinion, the Chargers didn't really do a good job at sacking Jalen Hurts, but was able to pressure him enough and that pass defense, those DBs did a very solid job. The linebackers did a very solid job reading Jalen Hurts very well. Patrick Mahomes is a little bit different, but reading some defenses have been able to read him like a book as well, with already having double digits in interceptions this year. Now with Kansas City Chiefs, I think they're a little bit more better with sacking quarterbacks, especially divisional quarterbacks, divisional opponent quarterbacks, and you're going to see some sacks again when they go up against Justin Herbert and that offensive line. Now, will they probably try to mix it up like they did last week and even the week before, with having their backfield Valid or Villid, however you want to say his last name, and Murray Hampton, both those two in the backfield, so Justin Herbert really doesn't have to rush too much, so he also doesn't have to force anything and get his hand hurt, which with that padded glove, it'd be pretty interesting to continue to see how he plays with that. He played pretty decent. I think he played extraordinary with the padded glove on, but in a regular game, that's decent play for Justin Herbert. But at least his defense was there to help. So that's why I think the Chargers truly are just going to be able to stay close with the Chiefs, but with the Chiefs win-loss record at home, I would have to go with the Chiefs just by a slight edge, and Patrick Mahomes could pull out some crazy nonsense in getting 300 plus passing yards and probably even 3+ passing touchdowns as well. Now, the turnover issue could still come with him throwing an interception, could still come with him or somebody fumbling the ball, but it could still be a very close game and could end up with a field goal at the very end. But I definitely think the Chiefs are going to try to take it just to get 7-7, because I think they're still wanting to fight for that 7th seed spot, regardless if it may be there for them or not. They'll still try to have hope. But you got Patriots and Bills next. Obviously, Bills and Patriots, two solid teams here. Patriots actually have a chance to clinch their division if they beat the Bills here, which is no surprise, because of how dominant defensively and offensively the Patriots have been. The Bills have basically scratched and clawed, lost a couple of games, or I would say 3 games that they really shouldn't have lost. But at the same time, just like all these other teams, they struggled. But the only difference between the Bills and these other teams is that the Bills has been able to successfully fix their mistakes. They're very much lucky that injuries haven't really plagued their team too much. Same with the New England Patriots, at least not too much. They are giving they're giving the Buffalo Bills a 1.5 favorite in this matchup, and I really don't mind that, just because of how successful Josh Allen has been against his divisional teams, divisional rivals, just in the last 5 to 6 seasons. And once Josh Allen was pretty much able to do what he needed to do, he's been able to control that division for probably the longest time. And with Drake May now in the suggestion of possibly being a MVP candidate, you're going to have that still with Stephon Diggs also being there. Stephon Diggs is basically not necessarily having a homecoming, but against his own team, he kind of is. Facing his own team, his old team that he used to play for a handful of years with, and was able to succeed quite well. But obviously, Stephon Diggs went to the Patriots and are now having fun with them, being the lead in the receiving core as well, the veteran for that young receiving core. And yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting seeing what's going to happen. Are we going to see Drake May pull off something like beating the Bills to basically solidify the New England Patriots are here, and by the time the playoffs hit, everyone pretty much should be worried about us? Or should we possibly see a Baltimore, oh my god, why is Baltimore in my mind? The Buffalo Bills possibly winning against Drake May, probably not beating them defensively, because I don't think that's going to work. Now, they can definitely still defensively try, but I just think Josh Allen will try to put out all of the stops, and even win by a field goal is not going to hurt them too bad. I think you get James Cook involved, you get Josh Allen involved, you get both your tight ends involved, and as long as your defense can step up, either intercept the ball from Drake May, pressure Drake May quite a bit, get a few sacks off of him like the Cincinnati Bengals were able to 2 weeks ago, and then you then have that shot to be able to win by more than just a point and a half, possibly even 6 to 10 points or 6 to 9 points over. And then you'll see, like, okay, depending on what the Patriots do, the Bills have this chance of still being able to get very close and winning their division, having a huge comeback. Even if they don't win their division, I still think making the playoffs for them is going to be pretty darn interesting. But winning against the Patriots is actually going to take the Patriots away from that number 1 seed, as long as the Denver Broncos win their last few games, as well as hoping that the Patriots lose a couple of theirs. Commanders so realistically, I think it will be the Patriots though, but it would be interesting to see Josh Allen do his thing against a division rival such as the Patriots for how good they've gotten. Commanders versus Giants, I will be going the Giants this week, only just because, well, 2 reasons. One, Giants are at home. They need to set a tone that, hey, you know, we would like the first round pick, we would like the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 draft, but at the same time, I feel like both the GM, the head coach, or the interim head coach of the Giants want to set a precedent. Sorry, I can't speak right now. They want to set a tone, pretty much. They are 2-3. A lot of their games that they've lost have been away games, as you can tell. They have yet to actually win an away game, and I believe majority, if not all of the rest of their games, I think 3 out of the 4 of them are home games, I believe. So, with that being said, the Giants have possibly a good, clean slate going in, facing the Commanders, who the Commanders aren't even going to have Jaden Daniels. Even when Jaden Daniels was playing last week, it still seemed like he had suffered probably the same injury, or it was like prolonging him from trying to come back. So he's been very off and on that, and I felt like if the Commanders were going to continue to be like this, sit Jaden Daniels, you know, let Marcus Mariota do his thing, and then at the same time be like, okay, what can we find that we need to fix from the rest of this season going into this offseason? Because we're going to have a top 10 pick, but we're also wanting to see what we can improve over the offseason, whether it's with the same players or with a few different players. But New York Giants are going to end up getting this win. But like I said, 2 reasons I think the Giants are going to get this win. Number 1, they're at home. They're 2-3 at home, but it's been a so-called hard knock life for them, but still been able to do a lot better at home than they have been away as the away team. And number 2, as you can see with the Commanders, last week they didn't score a single point against a Vikings defense that have been off and on, but still couldn't do a damn thing against the Vikings. And whether that's only because the Vikings had their number or the Commanders truly just stunk it up that entire game. They could be a little bit different here against the Giants, but with a defense, even though we've seen some struggle from that defense, but we've also seen some injuries from that defense as well. I think that defense still hasn't really changed too much since the week 1 of the NFL season, and I do think that defense is going to pressure the hell out of Marcus Mariota, making it a living hell for that Commanders team, and the Giants are going to pick up their 3rd win of the year in week 15. Eagles and Raiders, obviously there's really no need to talk too much about the Raiders. They're going to Philly, and they're facing Philadelphia Eagles. It's just not going to be the easiest thing for them. The Eagles, granted, they've been struggling, but against the Raiders team that they've pretty much taken care of certain other teams that are better than the Raiders. As long as they kind of come out and like, let's play for Philadelphia, let's get this 9th win under our belts, and let's move forward. That's exactly what they're going to do. I really don't see them struggling too much against the Raiders. Jaguars versus Jets, pretty much same thing. Actually, I think the Jaguars have the highest overall highest amount of points favorited towards them, 13.5. I believe the Eagles are at number 2, but Jaguars are going to also be at home, and defensively and offensively, Jaguars have surprised me. Like I said last week, they've truly had me put like I said, this the past review that I did that I released yesterday, which by this time this video should be uploaded on in the middle of the day on Thursday. But like I said before, these Jacksonville Jaguars have kind of shown, different from what I thought that they would be. They've shown every week that they're trying to improve before this playoff season happens, and they continue to have my foot get put into my mouth, and has pretty much made me a liar about these guys. So I appreciate that the Jaguars have continued to improve, even though I really still don't see them being the team that's gonna do anything. But maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe we should be talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars a little bit more, especially with the first-year head coach. That's gonna be great for their status, and with them starting off 9-4 already, I wouldn't say even if they lose their last however many games they have, I think that would be dumb if they did. But I think the Jacksonville Jaguars win this one, possibly even win 2 more just to get 11 of 6 games there. Yeah, sounds pretty good there. Cardinals versus Texans. Texans look to be a favorable win. Obviously, Woody Marks and Nick Chubb have been questionable, I believe, for making it to this week, and that's fine. But I do think if that is the case, it'll kind of show a little bit of struggle because they can't use their run game too effectively, and they'll want to focus more on their passing, which for the most part, majority of their games they kind of had, but also they've wanted to make sure that their run game was still there. Running backs been able to get a couple of touchdowns. Running backs have also gotten us a couple of solid almost or over 100 rushing yard games. Now, you got the Arizona Cardinals, whose quarterback for the remaining of this year has done pretty solid for them. Hasn't won them, has only really won them, I believe, one game, but still has done pretty solid. Even with the lack thereof of starting games, the guy has still produced 15 touchdowns and almost 2,500 passing yards. And even with a receiving tight end who's almost about to get over 100 receptions and over 1,000 receiving yards, more than likely going to happen in this game, I believe that you will see them have some hope. But with the defense of Houston, as long as they don't lose anybody and that defense continues to ride the wave that they're on, and offensively they make sure not to screw up too much, you're going to see Houston win in a big way at home. Now, Packers versus Denver. I am going to go personally again with the Broncos. Now, at the same time, Packers have a very good chance at becoming the first and possibly even only team to beat the Denver Broncos at the Mile High Stadium. So, with Josh Jacobs having a couple off and on bruises and scratches here and there, Jordan Love just surpassed 3,000 passing yards this season. Hasn't really had too much trouble getting intercepted, but having to face the Bears, who I believe is number 1 in turnovers or number 1 in pickoffs, I think they did a pretty solid job with that, and Jordan Love could still be able to do whatever they need to do against a Denver Broncos defense. And as long as the Packers defense shows up, you could be seeing a lot of pressure going up against Bo Nix, who it will show if he's ready or not in these games. A lot of the time, the defense have pretty much shaved their ass, and again, we're going to see how Bo Nix and that offense really does do against a playoff contending team. Now, granted, I'm sure we've already seen what they could do throughout this season, but it just, in my opinion, they're not necessarily like the New England Patriots, where I feel like New England Patriots are a well-rounded team. The Broncos have been able to make the right amount of plays and at the right around the time that they needed to, kind of like the Kansas City Chiefs of last year, and to be able to finish off with a W, because a win is a win at the end of the day. But I still will go with the Denver Broncos, because I do believe with Bo Nix getting better and better, and apparently even is either third or second in most completions and, well, most pass attempts and most completions, apparently. Didn't even know that, but apparently from last week, I'm sure he's gone up pretty high on that list, with having 31 for 38 on completions. But I will go again with the Broncos. Lions versus Rams. Obviously, Rams have looked pretty much untouchable besides a few times, once against the Panthers and a couple other times when they faced truly good playoff contending teams. The Lions are nothing to squander at. Now, if the Lions lose this game, they have a chance of no longer being in the playoffs. So the Lions, I think, are going to probably fight a lot harder, in my opinion, against the Rams than the Rams are going to fight a lot harder with the Lions. Now, the Rams should probably also want to be fighting this so they can not only win their division, but possibly even clinch a number 1 seed for their conference side, for their NFC conference playoff, which in turn will not only probably take out the Lions from playoff contention, but the Rams will be able to just be waving at everybody during the first round. I do believe that the Lions are actually going to take this victory against the Rams at home, but it's going to be a struggle for that Lions team. But as long as they continue to move around, have some fun, and not worry about it on the grand scheme of things, but just trying to win and get that W to get them to 9-5, they'll probably be able to say, well, at least we did this. Now we move on to the next game, and we're not going to have too much to worry about, but it's still about winning out the rest of this season. Every single week, it's about getting the W, and things like this are going to happen whether it's a matchup like the Lions and Rams, or it's a matchup like the Saints and Panthers, that the Panthers, if they lose, more than likely might get put back down out of playoff contention. As long as Tampa Bay wins and the Panthers lose, then I think Tampa Bay will either clinch their division either by the end of this weekend, or I'm pretty sure it's actually next weekend, as long as Tampa Bay wins it again. Wins their matchup again. But with the Saints doing what they did and stopping Baker Mayfield's offense, I think I will have to say it was an incredible comeback by New Orleans, and I will have to give them that one as well. I'll have to give that one to them last week, as well as I'm going to give it to them this week against the Panthers, because I wasn't expecting them to do what they did last week. But this week, Saints give it to the Panthers, and then the Panthers go 7-7, helping out with Tampa Bay. As long as Tampa Bay doesn't lose, then Tampa is going to be in a little bit more breathing room for themselves. 49ers versus Tennessee Titans. Obviously, we saw the Tennessee Titans and Tony Pollard able to have a solid matchup against the Cleveland Browns, and it was pretty refreshing for a lot of Tennessee Titan fans that were at that stadium or at home, being able to watch on television, seeing their team play some pretty solid football defensively and offensively. Still's got a lot of things to work on, but obviously they're not going to be in no playoffs. They're 2-11. They're facing a team that really wants in the playoffs, and if they lose, can affect them from making it to the playoffs a little bit more, especially if the Lions take this win against the Rams earlier in the day. But I do think the 49ers are going to end up winning against the Tennessee Titans. Defensively and offensively, it's going to be a almost complete shutout, I believe, for the 49ers. Seahawks versus Colts. Obviously, we all heard the news that the Colts were definitely signing a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers. Now, I'm sure that's going to probably hopefully go well. Maybe I'm assuming it won't. But again, we will just have to see, because I'm sure there's been some crazier things to happen in the NFL. But this is probably up there, or definitely up there in crazy level. But with the Seahawks' defense being exactly what they are, pressuring and pretty much destroying a 44-year-old is exactly their number one thing that they are willing to do to get this win. And if they can do that and disrupt the run as well, it will probably end up being a very sad but surely swift, not blowout, because I think the Colts are still going to be at least a possession and a half away from the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks are going to just kind of drift away from them quarter by quarter, but the Seahawks are going to end up getting this win without a doubt. You got Cowboys versus Vikings. Obviously, I know the Vikings did what they did against the Commanders, but in my opinion, it is way too late for them to do anything now. They could end their season with a 9-8 record or shooting for 9-8, just to be like, hey, we didn't do that good in the beginning of the season. We've had our ups and downs, our off and on games. However, this is what we're here for. We're here to win, and by the off season, not only are we going to try to fix our team up a little bit through free agency, but we're also going to want to get younger players and to become somewhat of a younger team with doing so, and fix a couple things, fix a couple holes in our defense, maybe even pick up a younger offensive lineman that's going to one or two offensive linemen that are either going to be good depth players, or even shift momentum for them to possibly start a majority of games going into next season. But I do think the Cowboys are a more powerful offense, and even when you see on paper, on the stat sheet, that the Cowboys defense is still one of the worst defenses in the league, I still believe that the Cowboys and Vikings Sunday night game will be a great back and forth, but the Cowboys will end up winning, whether it's because they pressured J.J. McCarthy. Now, granted, there is a thing that I can possibly feel that J.J. McCarthy somehow pulls it out of his ass to beat the Cowboys. And if they beat the Cowboys, they actually probably take the Cowboys out of suggestion, especially if Philadelphia wins this game. Against the Jets. No, sorry, against the Raiders. Against the Raiders. I don't know why I said the Jets. But against the Raiders. And then, be able to have no problem there. But the Vikings and the Cowboys, there's going to be a lot of fantasy points going between the Cowboys offense and the Vikings offense. Hopefully, J.J. McCarthy can play pretty much how he was last week, and be able to also give out a lot of receiving yards, hopefully to Justin Jefferson a little bit more, and even Jordan Addison and all those other guys. And we may even see some differences of defenses coming from the Cowboys or the Vikings. Both teams looked pretty solid to me and have both gotten better in the last 2 weeks. I think Cowboys, because of their trades, because of what they did, they were able to secure some solid defensive linemen and powerful guys that can help their defense right away. Vikings, they've pretty much just been able to fix and tweak things here and there. Granted, it hasn't been super fast successfulness, but at the same time, winning the way they did, their morale going into Dallas, going into that AT&T Stadium, tongue-tied, but going into that stadium and having to face a team like the Cowboys, who doesn't necessarily have the greatest defense, but it has improved their defense just as much as the Vikings have, or in my opinion, a lot less as the Cowboys, because the Cowboys, in my opinion, have gotten a lot better defensively. And I'm just mumbling and jumbling all of my words together, but I just have a strong feeling that this is actually going to be a very underrated matchup, coming off of both of them, coming off of solid defensive games and solid offensive games. The only difference is one of them came off of a blowout win and the other one came off of an unfortunate loss. So with that being said, I will be going for the Cowboys, but it still may just be a very close game. Okay, last but not least, Steelers versus Dolphins, Monday night, December 15th. I actually looked it up with my uncle, who's a Steelers fan. I know, me being a Bengals fan, having an uncle that's a Steelers fan is unbearable, especially since the guy is in his early to mid 50s, so he's pretty much witnessed a couple of Super Bowls himself. But anyway, the Pittsburgh Steelers so far at home on Monday night are completely undefeated. They are 10-0 under Mike Tomlin, and that's insane, truly. Now, obviously, whenever it comes to just Monday night games under Mike Tomlin for the Pittsburgh Steelers in general, they are 21-3. So beating the Steelers on a Monday night game, regardless of what their record is, shows that it's always going to end up being a game. And if you do beat them, it is somewhat of a great accomplishment. And the team that beats them usually either is going into the playoffs or fighting for a playoff spot themselves. So with this win for the Pittsburgh Steelers, us winning against the Baltimore Ravens, it gives them a hell of a lot more breathing room. Actually, 2 games ahead of the Baltimore Ravens, and 1 more game to possibly even clinch their division to get into the 4th seed, truly to be in the 4th seed of the playoffs, and I believe having a home game in that first round. Dolphins, however, the Dolphins beat the Steelers, then we will see Steelers being a game behind the Baltimore Ravens, I believe 2 games behind the Cincinnati Bengals. And yeah, be again pretty darn interesting, especially with the way a bunch of this divisional stuff is going on the way it is. But in my opinion, the Dolphins offensively is getting better. Defensively, I think they're still going to struggle. But both of these teams have had ups and downs. That is exactly why the Steelers are 7-6 and the Dolphins are 6-7. You really never know what the hell is going to happen on Monday night games or any of these matchups particularly. But for how close of a game this means for both teams is exactly why you should watch this Monday night game, just to see what happens. We could see an absolute wash with the Steelers defense doing exactly what they need to do. Pressure Tagovailoa, keeping Devon Achane from rushing over 100 yards or getting 2 touchdowns for absolutely no reason, intercepting the ball, getting fumbles, and then Aaron Rodgers or whoever is playing, Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, whoever, being able to work that backfield, because I know their backfield is very good with Gainwell, Jalen Warren, and one other running back that I can't remember the name of, working those guys, plus working their tight ends, also having DK Metcalf, who went off last week, which could possibly do the same thing here against the Miami Dolphins defense that I believe is not even in the top 24 or 25 defense, where the Steelers, I believe defensively and statistically, are slightly better. If I'm wrong on that, please check with that on me, but I'm pretty sure I'm very close of being right there. But anyway, Steelers are being favorited by 3 points. I will definitely say that is definitely what's going to happen. They either will win by 3 points going back and forth, or the Steelers will more than likely win by 8+ points. So anyway, that is all for you guys for today. You guys have a very nice day, night, evening, morning, whenever you guys are watching this. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you think of the stuff that I say here. Let me know what I got wrong, really. But, these are my opinions of what I think and how I think about these certain teams and these certain narratives that other people try to push on the NFL. And sometimes I think they're absolutely stupid. Sometimes I think they're almost absolutely right. So, anyway, yeah, you guys have a very nice day, and peace.